who's to say if the costuming that John M. Chu has dictated for the iconic song As Long As You're Mine has changed how we view this song for the better, but it has certainly changed how we view it for good. Hey friends, so I have to confess something. I am, unfortunately, a 43-year-old theater kid. I know this probably comes as a shock to you. I was about to record this, but then I ran into my kid Aspen downstairs and we ended up talking about Hadestown like for 15 minutes, and now I feel like I'm gonna cry because Hadestown is so good and it's so emotional. I almost said Andrew Lloyd Webber. Would Adam like a Phantom of the Opera inspired blanket for his 6th anniversary? I don't, probably not. Maybe Starlight Express. I don't know how Adam feels about roller skates. Sorry, if you don't give a shit about musical theater, this is probably incredibly boring, but if you do, I promise the jokes I'm making are so funny right now. Wicked was one of the very first shows that I saw when I moved to London on the West End with my kid Aspen, who is also, you know, a kid, but a theater kid. And so, like the rest of the world, Wicked has us in an absolute chokehold. We sobbed our way through Wicked Part 1, and now Wicked Part 2 is out, Wicked for Good. And who's to say if the costuming that John M. Chu has dictated for the iconic song As Long As You're Mine has changed how we view this song for the better, but it has certainly changed how we view it for good. Minor spoilers, there is a love scene, shall we say, set to a song called As Long As You're Mine that involves Elphaba, who is the main character of Wicked. And on stage, it's a kind of steamy scene, not so much in the movie. In the movie, she puts on a very large, very bulky, very strange cardigan that the internet is now referring to as Elphaba's sex cardigan. I know. It's a choice. It's an odd choice. It's certainly an odd choice for a movie franchise that I would say up until this point has had some of the absolute best costumes I've seen in movies in decades. Just incredible, incredible costuming work. And then, you know, there's Elphaba's sex cardigan. However, regardless of how we might feel about this cardigan, it has the internet in a death grip. Nobody can stop talking about the sex cardigan. And at this point, I think it's clear that Elphaba's sex cardigan is going to change the trajectory of 2025 winter knitting trends. So I wanted to get this out as soon as possible and share with you some Ravelry inspiration if you yourself want to knit an ankle-length cardigan for your woodland rendezvous with Jonathan Bailey, which if you're having one, congratulations. You've both overcome a lot to make that happen. So without further ado, I wanted to share with you a few of my favorite patterns for sort of getting the look. And when I say getting the look, I want to be really clear. None of these, I would say, are strongly tied to the movie version of the sex cardigan. None of them look like they were made by woodland creatures. If you wanted that look, you could probably, I don't know, let a dog attack it or maybe put it through a dryer a few times. There's a lot going on with it, is all I will say. However, you know, there is something to be said about the idea of a bulky, cozy, calf to ankle length cardigan. I think that's the part that's really going to appeal to people, and I think that's one of the reasons it's sort of captured the imagination. And if you've looked at what's going on, not in knitting this winter, but in fashion in general, like knitwear is very, very much front and center. So regardless of how you feel about the particular style of the Wicked cardigan, it is very much on trend. The concept of the Wicked cardigan is very much on trend. So to help you get there first, I wanted to share with you what I think are 5 pretty solid patterns that sort of evoke Elphaba's sex cardigan. So the first cardigan I want to talk about is the Ankle Grazer Long Line Cardigan by Lauren Aston Designs. Now, this cardigan doesn't have the same level of ornamentation as I think the Elphaba cardigan does, but it definitely has that really cozy, chunky feel. This is definitely something I could see myself curling up in on the weekends. It's really, really lovely. It's super bulky and it covers UK sizes 6 to 28, which I believe a 28 is like a 26 US. So it's really size inclusive. Although what I will say is that because it's an oversized cardigan, the pattern claims to cover sizes, UK sizes 6 to 28, but there are only 4 sizes in the pattern. So small is size 6 to 10, medium is size 12 to 16, large is size 18 to 22, and then extra large is size 24 to 28. So if you're at the higher end of one of those sizes, you may want to size up. And if you're a size 28, it may not have the same level of ease that it would necessarily show in the picture. It says specifically that this is a beginner-friendly pattern. It's all knits and purls, a little bit of ribbing at the end, some very gentle shaping. So if you're a beginner and you're looking for a project that you really want to try your hand at, that feels like you've done something dramatic and really feels like an accomplishment, I think this is probably a good one. Although, as we've learned from the Game of Wool controversy, you really want to make sure to take breaks when you're knitting with extra bulky. It can really hurt your hands. You would think that extra bulky would sort of fly off the needles because you're making so much fabric so quickly. And I think for a lot of people it does, but it also slows you down because your hands will start hurting more due to the heaviness of the fabric. The other thing I would say is you want to make sure to knit this slightly shorter than the actual length that you want, particularly, based on the heaviness of the yarn that you're using, because it will stretch over time. Like, that's just a lot of fabric. And so expect it to get longer the more you wear it. Next, one of the things that you'll notice about the Elphaba cardigan is that it sort of is falling apart in some places, or it looks sort of falling apart. Like, you definitely see a lot of bare skin in it. So when I was looking for patterns, I wanted to include something that was a little bit more of an elevated version of that. I wouldn't, by any stretch of the imagination, call Elphaba's sex cardigan sexy, but if you're looking for something longer that might have a little bit more va-va-voom than Elfie was necessarily going for, then I think the long line cardigan from Quail Studio is a really great bet. This has definitely sort of a lacier pattern. It's very gappy. It's, it gives sort of a nice translucency. It seems like a good layering piece. And if you want a long line cardigan that you can wear in a warmer climate, or that you can wear for more months out of the year, I think this is a really great bet for you. Now, this is knit in a worsted weight, so it would take a little bit longer to knit, but it, like I said, it is a lacier, sort of meshy type pattern, so you're not going to be losing that much time to knitting at a smaller gauge needle. This is an open cardigan, no buttons or anything, so it's much more forgiving around the bust measurements, and it does come in sizes extra small to 2XL. And I think one thing to keep in mind about this is it's a Rowan pattern, so it's free, which is great news. However, there is some errata on the Ravelry page that you're going to want to check out. I do think this is really lovely. I just think that this could be a cute 3-season cardi if you wanted the Elphaba look year-round, or like I said, you live in a warmer climate. One of the things that's sort of difficult to see in the pictures of the cardigan on the internet is that there is some amount of cabling that's happening on the back and the back sleeves. So if you like the idea of a longer duster or long line cardigan that's really cabled, then I wanted to bring you this. This is the Grayling cardigan by Magdalena Parker, and I think it's absolutely breathtaking. I really love the all over cabling. I think the length is really dramatic and lovely. This is knit in a bulky. It is less size inclusive. It only goes up to a 55-inch bust. And this is a yarn eater because it is an ankle length cabled cardigan. So expect to do almost 4,000 yards, or I think 3,500-ish meters of yarn, even in a bulky weight, at the larger size. Like I said, I think this is a really elegant sort of elevated take on it. I think this is probably one of the ones that feels furthest from the Elphaba cardigan, but I do think that it's really, really lovely. And if you are just one of the people who's just sort of looking at it and thinking, man, I would really love a cardigan that feels that cozy, this is a really great one to do. If you wanted to give this a little bit more of the handmade or hoof, claw, whatever woodland creature made feel, I'd really love to see this knit in something like a Noro, right? A thick and thin yarn. I know that that may not always be the best for something like cabling, but if you're going for that sort of distinctive handmade look, then that might be a really interesting choice for this. And honestly, I think a thick and thin yarn, if you're trying to sort of emulate the sex cardigan, I'm really sorry that I'm using that phrase so much. It's just that's what the internet's calling it. And if you came here looking for the sex cardigan and I'm calling it something else, you're gonna be confused. So I don't know if I want this to be a thing. I don't know if, like, is everybody gonna own one now? Like, also, if you see somebody else in an ankle length cardigan now who's just out on the street, are you gonna be wondering if they're gonna be getting it on with Fiero later in the woods? Like, sorry, that's an entire digression. Anyway, this is the Grayling cardigan by Magdalena Parker, and I really like it. The next one, I need to warn ahead of time that there are no projects for this on Ravelry as of right now, but I think the look is really cool. And I think if you're looking for something that sort of gives that super textured look, that sort of the handmade vibe of the Elphaba cardigan has, with a little bit more polish, I guess is the way that I'd put it, then Adele by Jody Long, I think is a really great example. It's super bulky and it really does interesting stuff, sort of alternating between stockinette and garter, that I think particularly with a variegated yarn, like it shows in the pattern photos, although you could do like a variegated gray, again, if you're trying to make it emulate the Elphaba cardigan a little bit better. This just really, of all of the different ones I saw, particularly in the close-ups around the cuffs, made me think, oh, this could very much be the spiritually the closest, I think, to the Elphaba cardigan. So I really wanted to include it, even though there isn't a lot of information about it on Ravelry. It does go from small to 3XL, which is great. And what's less great is that the 3XL tops out at a 54-inch bust. So again, it's not one of those cardigans that's buttoned at the front, so it is a little bit more forgiving, but particularly because larger bust sizes can also come with larger arm circumferences, that kind of thing. I just wanted to be sort of as accurate as possible about the size inclusivity range of all of these products. And this one actually I think is probably the shortest of the cardis that I'm showing, but there's nothing stopping you from just knitting it until you're sick of knitting, right? You can always turn the only thing standing between you and an ankle length cardigan isn't the pattern, it's the amount of yarn you have. So do what you need to do there. If you wanna just make it a longer cardigan, if you're choosing a shorter pattern and you're making it longer, I would suggest making sure that you're choosing a pattern that's made to be oversized, that has a lot of positive ease, because if you're anything like me, you're gonna wanna make sure that it sort of skims the hips without clinging too much to it, so that your fabric doesn't hit your hips and is like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do here? And then finally, and I saved this one for last, because while I think it's probably one of the ones that looks the least like the Elphaba cardigan, it's also my favorite. I think spiritually, it feels really spot on to, like, this is, if I had been the costume designer on Wicked for Good, and John M. Chu came to me and said, look, we need you to come up with a cardigan pattern that will make Elphaba look hot as heck for when she finally has her steamy rendezvous in the woods with her romantic interest. After a couple hours of rousing debate with John M. Chu about why a cardigan was the right choice for this particular romantic interlude, this is the pattern I would land on. I think that this is well in keeping with Elphaba style. I think it's more polished. I think it's, dare I say it, a little sexy. I just really love this. I would love to have something like this in my wardrobe. I'm not physically, emotionally, intellectually, skill-wise capable of knitting something like this, but you know, if anybody wants to knit it for me, I'll let you know my size. It's the Cove Cardigan and Snood by Jo Story, and I think it is just gorgeous. It is a beautiful all over moss stitch with this really dramatic, almost serpentine cabling down the back. It's breathtaking, I think. It also has sizes up to a 52-inch bust. And one of the things that I find the coolest about this particular pattern is that it also comes with a free matching snood. And I didn't know what a snood was, but looking at the pictures, it seems like a cowl scarf or a circle scarf that could also be a hood, kind of a deal, that also has some of that really gorgeous serpentine cabling on it. So you're not just getting the full-length cardigan pattern, you're also getting this matching snood, which I think is really cool. And it's just so polished and lovely. It has a really great tension between a look that is very sort of comfortable and slouchy while also still feeling really structured. It has pockets on the front that are at the perfect length for just sticking your hands in if they're cold. And did I mention the matching snood? I just absolutely, absolutely love this pattern. And if any of you decide to knit it, please send me pictures because I would absolutely love to see. So hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it entertaining. I don't often do pattern roundups because as a relatively new knitter, I don't feel as comfortable telling you what you should and should not knit unless I'm doing it from the perspective of being a new knitter. But sometimes there's just a cultural moment, much like Ariana holding Cynthia Erivo's fingernail in the original Wicked press tour, that just brings us all together as people. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And I wanted to be a part of that with you. And so if you enjoyed this, please do let me know. I'd be happy to do other pattern roundups in the future. If you like the vibe of this, if you're looking for an internet home full of really kind, knowledgeable, direct communicators, I really would recommend that you subscribe to the channel. We have a really fantastic community here that we've been building together. And yeah, so subscribe. I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon. And I hope you're having a great day and that tomorrow is even better than today was. And I'm going to talk to you again real soon. Thanks. Bye.